Welcome to the show, Ali. I'm so excited to have you on.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
I would love to know if you could give our audience a little bio of who you are and where in the world you are currently joining me from today.
All right, I'm joining right outside of Nashville, Tennessee. And hi, everyone. I'm Ali Levine. I wear many hats. I'm a multi-dimensional being, if you will. But my biggest love truly is transformation. I love helping my clients go through deep transformation. It started in the celebrity styling world where I was helping people truly transform on a wardrobe level. And now it's become, because of my breathwork journey and everything I know we're going to get into, it's become a true soul transformation, a real, mind, body, soul, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, all those pillars I feel are so important for all of us. And so getting to work with just different people and watch their transformations and what they go through, that's what I'm all about. And because I've gone through my own transformational journey and continue to evolve and see what that's like. And I love to see it in others. So yeah, and I'm a mama of three and I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I want to back right up to the start of things because you said transformation for you, it started out in the sense of like styling and being a stylist. And I think that's so unique and different. What led you to that path essentially? Like, what got you started on the path of being a stylist and working with people in that sense?
Yeah, sure. It's funny when I think back to my own journey. I've always loved fashion, like fashion since I was a very little, like probably 1, 2 year old girl. It was just in my blood, I think. My grandmother always dressed super fashionable around me. My mom, loved taking me shopping with her. That was our thing we did together, the three of us, bonding wise, mother, granddaughter and grandmother. And I just always would notice when I would go to stores and boutiques, people get so excited, trying on clothing, or they would stand in front of the mirror and they'd like, get like, ooh, this looks good on me. And it always, made me curious. I'd watch people at a young age. I was a big people watcher, still am, and I would watch and I'd be like, wow, look how excited they are. And then as, my young self, I would just walk over to people and I would say like, oh, you look so pretty in that, or this color looks great on you. And so I think it was always in me, and I just always was drawn to the fashion industry and just the way, it all was. And before I became a stylist, I worked in corporate design. Before that, I worked in retail. So I've been in the fashion world. I studied fashion design, and merchandising. I was the president of the fashion club at my school. So I've been in that for a very long time. And so it just kind of felt like a part of me. And the styling came later after I had been kind of in a lot of different areas of fashion, where, long story short, without dating myself too much, the stock market crashed and I didn't have a job and I was working in corporate design. And I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? Because nobody would hire me. And it was kind of just one of those things where you surrender, right, to, the universe and say, okay, I don't have anything else to do. And I was offered opportunities through different friends and family to go and check out movies and, different TV shows to work on and help as just like an assistant, just to go run around and, nothing to do with fashion, like get donuts and, go help them with, their cat or whatever, like errands, like kind of Devil Wears Prada kind of thing, if you've seen that movie. And I was like, all right, I just need a job. Like I had an apartment, I was living right outside of New York City. So I just started helping on these different projects. And then I got very passionate about working in entertainment and enjoying, that level of working with people versus working with just, design and being in an office per se. And that kind of just evolved into working hard and letting people know what I was really into and that I had studied fashion and what I wanted to do. That's when I started learning about costume design. Stylists weren't really a coined term at that point because, again, dating myself a little, but they weren't really like a big thing like they are now. So I was just kind of talking to different designers and asking like, hey, how do you get into this? What do you do? And the more people that found out that I was interested, the more I started getting just different intern opportunities to work for free, for different designers to get my, foot in the door. And then shortly after that, became an assistant and worked on Wall Street Money Never Sleeps was like my first big movie with Oliver Stone and some really big names and working for them. And I got to work with the costume designer there and, that whole incredible team. And that's what kind of led me on the journey of costume design, which then led me to styling and moving to Los Angeles and then, launching Ali Levine Design and going into the whole thing.
I love that journey so much. I think it's just so unique and so different. And it's true, like even someone who like I'm a self-proclaimed like tank top and like sweats type of person, but I know like when I do dress up and I do like, do my makeup and I wear something, I'm like, man, you just feel so good and so
You do.
confident and just so like you almost feel like this like better version of yourself when you wear something that I think just makes you feel and whatever capacity that looks like, right? Like if you're
Absolutely.
yeah, like a
And I
sweat
love
and
what you
pants.
said, like how when you look at yourself and you feel good, I think that like it really is like this ritual of like self-love, self-care
Mhm.
that we like sometimes forget about, especially I think as moms. I know I surely did for quite some time because it's just easier to just be like comfortable and just be like, oh, whatever. I'm just like with the kids and I'm going to get messy and doesn't matter. And it's like, sure, you don't have to get glam, especially if you're a mom with your kids. Like I totally get it. And there's most days I'm not like, obviously I'm doing a podcast today, so I'm put together, right? But most days, like I'm definitely more casual unless I'm doing something that I know I need to be ready for, or I'm filming content or whatever it may be. But the reason I share that is because I think like the deeper part of it is that real like self love, that real self care. It's like, oh, I love myself to take these few minutes to like feel good and look at myself like you just spoke to Megan, and we're like, oh, I look really pretty. Oh, I feel really good in what I did, or I just added this little bit of blush, but like it lit me up, and so it's been cool even to see that journey, even within my own self, of that transformation of no longer like that ego, of like, oh, I have to look, a certain way, or, I must represent myself a certain way. Cause let's be real, as a, somebody wardrobe stylist and working in that industry of Hollywood for a very long time, you do kind of take that on without even meaning to. I certainly did. And I think that was a big part of my transformational journey and evolving, was letting go of that and kind of letting that part of me die off, if you will. And a lot of people call it an ego death, right? And it really was for me. It was like this mourning of my old self, to like really release it and to allow myself to step into motherhood fully, to embrace this new, true, authentic, raw version of myself. And then finding this like beautiful, I don't like the word, balance when it comes to motherhood, because I feel like we're like juggling so much. I like to say harmony, because like finding that harmonization of, what we're going through, and allowing it to just beautifully flow, of the ebbs and flows, because that's what motherhood is, in my opinion, is this beautiful ebbs and flows. Some days it's like totally on a high, and some days you're totally low, and some days it could be just kind of in the middle, right? So it's like understanding that. And I think those waves happen too when it comes to, when we're getting ourselves dressed. There may be a day where you're hanging out with your kiddos and you feel like maybe doing a little bit more for yourself. And so you take those few minutes and you feel good about it. Other days you may, like you said, may want to be more comfortable and just be in your sweats, but you love the outfit you're wearing. That's that sweat outfit because it's so cute and it's comfortable. It's like, it doesn't have to be about that, that ego of like, oh, I look good. It's that true deep resonance of that self-love, self-care that I've learned in, this transformational journey, is like, how do I feel, and then like, what do colors do for me? Like, what does this color feel like to me? Because everything has energy, I believe. We're energetic beings. And so if you're on that train and, you understand that, then it's like, okay, everything you choose has energy. So like this color I'm wearing today, it's like yellow, is a color of purpose. It's also a color that represents happiness, color that has that frequency that really brings that. And so it's like, I love how it makes me feel. I also love how it lights other people up when I notice that they're around me, and so noticing those things of like, what do you, graduate for that you want to put on, what feels good to you, what is being pulled to you because that's part of, your energy, or what are you maybe not wearing because you're, afraid to. We all have, fears and judgments of ourselves, right? And it's usually just of us, nobody else. It's just us telling us these terrible stories. And it's like, there's no judgment there, because I've done that so many times. And I think has been a big part of my own journey, is like learning that self-love and that self-compassion of like, okay, my body didn't bounce back. Like it just didn't, especially after my first daughter and a C-section and all these things, it was like the body just didn't do what I was told was going to happen. And it was like loving myself through that. And then getting rid of clothing that no longer served me because I was holding on to it, because I was so like, oh, this Ave Légère dress that I wore to this red carpet looks so amazing on me. And it's so, fitted and, tight and skinny. And I'll get back into it when I lose, 20 more pounds and I lose the little, mom pooch in the front and, all these things. And then I finally was like, no, when I went through a big transformation of the shedding of my ego, I finally just like got rid of it. I was like, you know what? This is holding old stories. This is holding stagnant energy. just like I do for my clients, I need to move through my own stuff. I need to embody this work and I need to get it out and I need to start over and I need to find pieces that light me up and make me feel good in this moment where I am now, because we're always changing, right? We're always evolving, hopefully, and shifting. And so as we do, we need to also realize that parts of ourselves have to be left behind and new parts will be able to evolve and expand. So that's kind of been my newer journey into the styling world. And I've actually like rebranded myself as an intuitive stylist, because everyone I work with like sees the energy behind with what I'm doing and like clearing out their closet and letting them get conscious in their space and understanding that our clothing holds so much more than just that ego look of, oh, I look pretty. It's like what you spoke to so beautifully of like looking in the mirror and feeling that light within yourself and what lights you up and has that self-love, that self-care ritual, as well as like, what is the energy behind it? And what am I maybe wanting to say when I'm wearing this? Or what am I wanting people to receive when they see me in, this color or this pattern or whatever it may be? So I could get real deep on that, but that's been a big transformation for me of the journey, even from where I started in the styling world to where I am now, even with my clients.
I love it so much. And you spoke a little bit on it, but I was hoping maybe you could dive a little bit more into like what was that catalyst moment for you that made you go, like I still love being in the styling world, but there's something deeper that needs to happen and that you went through your own transformation. Was it like a slow burn that you just noticed, oh, all of a sudden I feel like I'm transforming in different ways? Or was there like a pivotal moment that you're like, this life that I had before no longer serves me and I need to transform it in a more positive way?
Yeah, it's a good question. So to be honest, I feel like there were a few pieces to this. So long story short, to kind of like sum it up, first, I think I was just in full burnout just in my career. I was working way too much. I was doing like probably easily 80, 90-hour weeks, like as many of us do when we go hard and we grind and we, really want to push for something we're doing. And I was at the height of my career and I was, quote unquote, successful as far as hitting every milestone and all the things that I needed to be doing. But I started realizing that I wasn't feeling it in the inside. Like I wasn't feeling that success. I wasn't receiving this happiness from each client that would get best dressed or be on, a top magazine, or I would be featured in a top feature. Like it was almost like I was just checking off a box and I was on a hamster wheel and there was no actual emotion happening. And I would just kind of be like, oh, okay, I guess that's just how it goes. Like once you hit a certain level of success, you're just supposed to just check off the box. So I thought, no. And so that I think was my first sign of like the burnout coming, but I kept ignoring it, kept ignoring the signs. As I always tell people, we always receive signs. It's just a matter of if you're willing to actually receive them or not. And I was definitely getting them and I was ignoring them and pushing them away. And I think it took between, getting pregnant with my first daughter and realizing that like I needed to take care of my body. I needed to take care of like my mind so much more because I was carrying this beautiful human. I'm essentially the sacred portal to this life. And I started realizing even like the energy I was around, like even certain clients that were just a little bit more, in their ego and more in, the non-gratitude space and all that, it was really wearing on me. It was like, it was starting to really become toxic. And so between the exhausting hours, the toxicity of certain clients, the environment, just different things in Hollywood, it started to not resonate for me. And I started getting like really just feeling sick, honestly, like on certain sets and certain things were just like setting me off. And I was like, oh, okay, this is just like something's not working. And it started to really feel so much physical that I had to kind of take a step back. And to be honest, I am not someone who really gets on my knees too often to, pray, but I really did because I was really like, what's wrong with me? What's going on here? And, whatever you, believe, I really felt like, God and the universe spoke to me and said, I needed to put this on hold and take a break. It was wearing me down and I was no longer going to be in this, direct chapter. And I have to be honest, Megan, like when I heard that, because I truly heard it very loudly, I got into my bathtub and I started crying. And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do then? Like, who am I? Like, who's my sense of self, right? This has been my identity for so many long. Ali Levine, the celebrity wardrobe stylist. So who am I? What am I going to do? How am I going to? So I think that was like the first, kind of pushing away from the direct sign I had asked for that I was like, no, that can't be right. I must have heard it wrong. And so then it took, honestly, and I laugh now because I was not a laughing matter in the moment. In the moment, it was very deep and very emotional and very raw. But now I can laugh because I can see like the beauty and the silver lining behind it all, and guiding me into my higher path of where I am now. But when this all happened, basically, like I kind of pushed it away. I did stop some styling, but I didn't fully stop. I kind of kidded myself and said, I can do some clients and I can have, I can make this kind of work, right? Like to my benefit, I could have my cake and eat it too, if you will. No. And so fast forward to, having my daughter. I wanted to have a natural birth. I wanted to be in a birth center. Long story short, I did not have that happen. I transferred to a hospital after 42 hours. I had her after, that time, having a C-section, and it was a very traumatic birth. And during that birth, I was actually being harassed by a client asking me about their wardrobe and the whole 9 yards. And look, I don't fault them at all, because it was my boundaries that I did not put up. I allowed that experience to come into, my birthing room. Truly, it was like my husband tried to take my phone, my doula, and I was like, no, 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 they need me to help them with this. My husband was like, you're in labor, like get off your phone. I was so fixated, Megan, like on helping them and making sure they were happy, because at that point in my life, I was so focused on everyone else's happiness instead of my own. Another part of my transformation journey. And I was so worried that they were so upset with me that I wasn't focused on the most important, most amazing time in my life. And, it was like, I don't know what I was thinking in the moment. I was just thinking, I need to help this person. And so, anyways, long story short, I think that moment was really that true next level of that burnout, if you will, because then from all the outside world, not being focused, not being inward with my birth, I wound up transferring to the hospital. I wound up, in a C-section after 42 hours. My body wasn't progressing. And I think back to that now and I'm like, wow, maybe if I had been a little bit more present, maybe if I had been a little bit more, who knows what would have happened, but I definitely was not in the right mindset, nor was I even being present in my own body and experience to even experience what was happening. And so then shortly after that, I had a very heavy postpartum depression show up. And from there kind of started the journey of, transformation. It was really like, that was the catalyst, I guess. And then, going into that heavier season of postpartum depression that I never expected to experience. I think that was the next level of the catalyst, because once again, after I went through my birth, the following week I ran to a red carpet at like not even, 7 days out, and was like on the red carpet trying to show up and do my thing and show that I could do it. Cause, hey, I can do it. I can. And I could, but I was exhausted and my body was so not happy with me. And I just, felt horrible, honestly. And I didn't even like the picture. Like it was so stupid, honestly. And I can say that now because in the midst of it, it was like, no, I have to show up. I have to be there. And maybe it was like 2 weeks after, but it was like super close to after having her. And I just remember sitting in bed and being like, I don't even like what my body looks like. Like, why am I there? My body didn't bounce back. Like I was so mad at myself for like even going. And I think that was like the next level of like learning, like you have to take a step back. Like you have to allow this to fall off. You've been told now a few times, and now like you're essentially being forced to sit still. And the postpartum depression did that. It really forced me into a true surrender of myself, to understand there was a lot of darkness within me that I needed to deal with. There was a lot of trauma and grief that I hadn't dealt with from other things that had gone on in my life. And all of that came up in the postpartum depression. The birth essentially released the trauma, and, that brought forth my full, postpartum depression journey. And because I'm someone who's more holistic and more about, the mind and body, I didn't want to, get on a pill, personally. Obviously for everyone it's different, but for me, I remember sitting with the doctor when this was all happening and they diagnosed me and everything. And they said, you need to get on, medication immediately. You're really like, you're past, I guess, whatever they look at when they look at the charts. I was past where they wanted me to be. And they were like, you're in a really bad place. But the good news is we can get you on this. And within 6 to 8 weeks, you should be feeling much, much better. And I remember sitting there talking, to myself and sitting on this bench while they, they're inside. And I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to do this? What do I want to do? And call it God, call it, the universe, whatever it may be. I heard once again, like that loud voice that night when I asked for help, like, you can't take these. This is
Mhm.
not the answer. And I remember sitting there crying and being like, oh my God, what do you mean this is not the answer? I'm being given the answer so I can go back and get back to work and do what I want to do. And I was sitting there just crying and I kept hearing, this is not the answer. This is not the answer. And I asked like my higher self, I asked my soul, like, what do I need to do? And I just heard like, you need to be, you just need to be. So I turned to the doctor and I said, I'm not going to take the prescription. I'm going to look at other ways. And I remember specifically him looking at me and saying, well, then good luck, because I don't know where you're going to be after this. And that was so hard. Still makes me upset. It was so hard to swallow because I was like, okay. It's like brand new mom, like really in it, trying to figure out who the hell I am, what's going on. And it was like, what do you mean? Like, you don't know, but I had to trust. I obviously the things I was doing weren't working. The ego part of me, the grind part of me, the unhealthy mentality of just go, go, go wasn't working in my life. And I needed to try something different and I needed to trust. And so this was a real surrender of everything and just allowing myself to honestly to break down, to allow myself to see every single part of myself that I was hiding, that I was masking through my career, through not dealing with things, in my present and my life, my friends, my husband, all the things, right? Just like every reality. It was like, I realized my work had become like this mask to not deal with anything else. So I could just stay in that. And I was good at that. And I could keep, succeeding at that. So I didn't have to worry about anything else. Just keep swimming, right? Just keep going. And obviously I burned out massively so. And then like you spoke to with the catalyst, it was just kind of like one after the other. And I feel like even that was a catalyst moment. It was like, I could have gone back and done that and, probably wound up back in, the same hamster wheel and God forbid in a worse place. But, my higher self knew that I needed to surrender and I needed to trust. And that was not easy to do as someone who didn't trust at that time, didn't believe in any of that, and really was very much just look at what's in front of you and just keep going. And so fast forward, in the postpartum depression journey, I found, a shaman. I found a cognitive therapist. I had everybody. I mean, like I had, a postpartum doula. I mean, I looked every holistic direction I could to get help and to just find, some kind of, I guess, safety, if you will, of like, help me, please. But truly, I had to do the work. Like I had people that could give me tools that could say, like, we're going to talk this out. And why are you speaking to yourself this way? Or why do you think these things about your body or whatever it may be? Or of course, doing some like, with the shamans and spiritual work and everything that did come up, and it was all super helpful. But it wasn't until I actually started to really embody different practices and actually believe them even before they were showing me that they worked and trusting that they were working, that it shifted for me. You know what I mean? Like it was really that true clarity of going from surrender to then embodiment, to then bring me into transformation.
I want to like thank you so much for speaking on that and sharing your such a vulnerable story. And I want to talk about some of these more holistic things that you were doing, but it's such an interesting thing to me, whether it's like postpartum or even if you're like, you know, in your teen years or adult years and you're being prescribed medication. And it's not to take away, like I know some people who have suffered
Sure.
horrific postpartum and they need things in the moment.
Absolutely.
But in my head, I'm always like, we're not really solving the problem. Like we're just
No,
like
we're putting a
band-aiding.
band-aid. There's no
Yeah,
root,
it's
right? It's like, where is the root of this problem? I love that you
yeah.
said that because it's so true. I think we're seeing that, every which way right now in our society is it's like everyone's trauma is unearthing. It's because we put a band-aid on everything and we're not getting to the root of anything, which is what our soul desires in order for us to reach our highest selves and our soul paths. I really believe that, and so I love that you shared that. It's like, look, no judgment, anyone listening, you do what you need to do in the moment because you need to take care of yourself. But then once you've gotten through, then you really need to look at yourself, if you're willing to ask yourself, what's the deeper root of this? How can I actually move through this and not just band-aid this? And thank you for saying that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I could go on a whole tangent about like I even think of like, yeah, it seems like so many young girls these days are going on like birth control pills and
Yes.
it's like why are we like,
Right.
if it's like they're having a heavy periods, it's like, well, let's figure out why they're having heavy periods instead of
Right.
putting them on
Let's
birth
work with the
control.
body.
Like
Right.
what's going on here? What are some of those more holistic? You said you had a shaman, a postpartum doula, you had a cognitive behavioral therapist. What were some of those maybe like immediate things that you started to do that made a difference, and maybe some of those more like long term, they were moving the needle forward, but maybe like not right away, like
For
both the
sure.
long and short term things.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think first off, just honestly, like a deep session and being real with myself of like what I had been hiding and not dealing with, and like actually seeing it, right? We all, I believe, like have darkness within us. Like we are all, I believe, of love and return to love in this world, but we do have darkness within us. We can't have, light without the dark. And so you have to be willing to see these dark parts of yourself, to move through them and alchemize them into light. I really believe. And I think for many, that's really hard because we're one, not taught that. We're taught to shove everything down and not deal with our shadows. And two, we also don't necessarily want to look at ourselves and say, ooh, that icky part of me, I don't want to deal with that. Right. But that's what actually allows the growth. That's what actually looks at the transformation. Like it was funny. My daughter, Amelia, my 5-year-old, recently got butterflies. And I love butterflies. I love looking at them and everything, but I haven't been a part of a process for a butterfly since I was a kid. So we got the whole, jar, the kit and the whole thing. And anyways, long story short, we're watching these tiny, 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 little things grow. And I mean, they grow fast. They like double in size in like a week. And she's like, wow, this is amazing. And the next thing we know, they make their chrysalis and then they go in the chrysalis and we're reading about it. And she's like, they literally crisp up to dirt. And I'm like, they literally like disappear and then they reform, right? I'm like, think about that even in your own life, right? Like if you go through a true transformation, that's exactly how I felt. It was like, I went through this like crazy growth and then it was like, oh, wait, no, that didn't work. And then it was like, nothing, just like shed it all. It's all gone, shedding old parts of yourself. But then you reemerge into this like beauty. But imagine how dark that has to be like for the butterfly in some way, right? That you literally trust going into this chrysalis and crisping up to nothing. And then you have to believe you reemerge and you like reform into this beautiful creature. It's so fascinating. And I was watching this process with her and I was having this like reflection moment of like my own life. And I was like, wow, this is really like what so many of us, I think all of us go through if we're present enough to, receive it and understand it. And so I think, to your point, it's like that was really the first part of like the short work was just allowing all that to come up, allowing those darker parts, allowing, that journey of just what was the trauma that I was holding? What were the things I wasn't dealing with? Even if it was bit by bit, just releasing it, saying it out loud, like the things I would think about myself, with my body, for example. Like I hated my C-section scar and I hated the way my stomach looked and all these things because I was around Hollywood figures all the time. And it was like, being next to them, at an event was like, oh God, look at me. I used to look somewhat like them and now it's nowhere near close, and it's terrible. And that was what I thought, and then I would look in the mirror and I would grab my body and I'd be like, ew, why are you so inflamed? And why do I have this scarring here? And then I started having inflammation problems, and nobody, Meghan, could diagnose why I had inflammation problems. Well, guess what? As soon as I started journaling out all the things about my body of what I hated and what I couldn't stand, and started writing down the things I loved about my body, and started looking in the mirror and speaking to myself in a positive way, well, guess what? All of a sudden, the inflammation started to go down. And I couldn't believe it, honestly. I really couldn't. I was like, I went and did, all these ridiculous procedures, and I went, and met with all these people and all these things that I thought I needed to fix my body. But all I had to do was love my body and love on myself and speak kindly to myself, because guess what? Our bodies are always listening. Not only are they the messenger and the divine wisdom and the divine channel for us, but they're also always listening. So everything you feed it, your body is receiving, whether you realize it or not. And it will manifest, good or bad, in one way or another, because it's hearing you, it's storing everything. And so all of a sudden I'm like massively inflamed and my stomach's sticking up. And it was like, what is going on? And then as soon as I started that practice, it was like slowly but surely it started coming down. And then same with like journaling. Like I hated journaling. And then I started like writing out all the different things. And slowly the things I was thinking about myself started to shift. because I was writing it out and I was seeing it, right? I had to face it for what it was. Like, oh, you really think that about your body. Oh, you really think that about yourself. That's terrible that you think that about yourself. And do you really, or is that just a terrible thought that you're holding on to that maybe somebody else gave you that you've been holding on to as a false limiting belief? Like, so much of that came up for me, right? And so it was all this darkness that like had to come up in these short little bits first, that then trickled into, then my cognitive therapist would give me certain words. And it was like, when she would say, like light, like in the beginning, it was all like negative words I gave her back. And then eventually it started shifting and it was like more positive words, and it was more like illuminating words and things that made me happy. And it's like, okay, these are starting to shift now. Your thoughts are shifting. You're starting to like see things differently. And then I think meditation, honestly, was the next big moment for me. She said to me, I want you to meditate every day for 3 to 5 minutes a day. And I was like, I hate meditating. And she was like, you didn't even start yet. And I'm like, I tried it in college. I hated it. My best friend, I crack up now because she's still my bestie. And she has been like awake to all this for a very long time. She tried for so long to help me with so many things. And I was just like, I can't do it, Steph. I can't do it. And now she laughs at me because she's like, oh, really? And so it's funny because I think also too, we only receive things as we're actually ready to receive them. As I'm saying this, I have to say it is 12:12 on my clock. So angel numbers, confirmation, another big part of my journey and awakening. And I think when we get these signs, it's like we are being told by God and the universe and our spirit guides and everything around us, like, hey, you are supported. You do have support, but you also have to be willing to receive it, right? And actually like embody that and receive it and let yourself move through it. And so the meditation for me was like, I hate it. I hate it every day in the journal. I hate meditating. This doesn't work. She makes me meditate every single day. I swear, that's what I wrote for months. And I was convinced it was not working until one day, it was like one random morning. And I woke up and I went to write in my journal, I hate meditating, as I went to meditate. And this is what's funny, Meghan, is like the mind, right? Was already, the ego was already telling me to write this down before I'd even flipping done my meditating that morning. And as I went to write this down, my body, this resonance showed up and was like, no, you don't. Something's shifting. Like, you don't want to write that down. And I was like, oh, and so I actually wrote down, I maybe don't hate meditating today, you know? And that kept happening. All of a sudden I started noticing over time, there was a shift in like, oh, I might actually enjoy this. This might actually feel good in my body. I'm noticing the birds are chirping. I'm noticing the sun is out. All of a sudden it seems to be brighter. Maybe I want to go put my feet in the ground. And like, it sounds so silly, but I started connecting with nature. I started actually respecting and understanding, like, I'm part of all of this. I started hearing things just like my husband would say to me, not like he wouldn't talk to me every morning, but I was actually receiving it. It wasn't an autopilot. It wasn't just like talking. It was like, oh, I'm receiving this love from this man who always gives me love, but like, I'm actually receiving the love. And it just kept happening. It was like this ripple effect from every single thing in my life was becoming received. And so I started embodying this, right? I started feeling this love in my body and really like receiving this deep love of myself and others from, around me. And it just started to shift. And so meditation, I really believe on a deeper level and on a long term changed my life. And then fast forward to 2020, whatever we want to call that traumatic event for all of us at this point, I don't even know at this point. I was turned upside down like most of us were, right? And I was pregnant with my second daughter and I was losing it. And I said to my husband, I cannot go backwards. I'd finally found the light at the end of the tunnel. I was finally in a good place after about a year's time. I could like look in the mirror and be happy. I was starting to dress myself again. I was going out again. I was like finally finding a new version of Ali. I say the 2.0 version of me. I was really like loving myself on a new level that I'd never before. And then 2020 came and it was like, no, you've got to be kidding me. I'm pregnant. Meditation is not working. I'm spinning out. My anxiety is starting to go all over the place. I'm getting more inflammation again. Like everything was happening on an even faster, deeper scale. And it almost felt like I could not like even see the next like day. It was just so fast it happened. I couldn't believe it because I was doing so well for quite some time. And then 2020 took that all away. And I think for a lot of people, for that matter, for, with all those different traumas we all experience. But I say that because I was so grateful that I at least had the embodiment practice And the practices that I had learned before, that I started going back to my tools. I started journaling out what I was feeling. I started also listening to sound, because that was something I also got really into, because again, the body's always listening. So I started listening to different frequencies. I, started trying to meditate, even if I couldn't, and would just like at least get into that space. I would just sit in the bath and just try to be still. And I did my best that I could, with what I had. And it was helping a little, but to be quite honest and transparent, it wasn't helping enough. And I was really feeling lost. And this is where breath work showed up for me in my life, and why it has completely transformed my life. And I speak to this so heavily to everyone I talk to, because when we talk about the body as medicine, and we talk about the body being the messenger and the channel, this is what I received so deeply and profoundly when I started breath work. And I believe the breath found me. I feel like God showed up for me in a whole new way. And it was like, here's the next answer. Here's what you need. This is what it is. And so, and I honestly, like, it was so random how it happened. I was posting on social, like saying I was struggling and telling people, like, if you're feeling this, you're not alone. I'm sending you love. And then people started like randomly reaching out to me, all different people that I like hadn't connected with, that were like, you should try breath work. You should check out this. You've done meditation, this. And I remember writing it off. I was like, oh yeah, okay, breathing, sure. I was totally like, no. And then I was so fed up that nothing was helping me, that I was like, you know what? Why not? Why wouldn't I? And I think, again, it's that surrender, right? You get to that place and you're like, I have to surrender. I have to just trust. And I was back there again. The lesson came up again, Ali, time to surrender. So I did. And I jumped on a remote, right? Because we were in crazy times where we couldn't go anywhere, especially when I was living in California. So I jumped on a remote session and I started breathing. And I swear, I have never felt so broken down, but so seen at the same time. I like felt like I moved years of trauma in one session, and I could not believe it. And I felt so grateful. Like, this is actually changing me in this moment, and my body is receiving it, and it's actually moving out in this moment. And I actually feel like I can get into meditative state tonight and go to bed. Like, it was that quick, and I could not believe it. And I honestly, like, anyone listening or watching, like, I wouldn't have believed it until I experienced it, because I had heard that, but then to actually experience it and go through it and move through it, it was like, oh my God. And then I think about it now and I'm like, it makes sense, right? Like, we're given this. This is part of who we are and how we literally survive. But now you can take the breath and thrive. You don't have to be in survival mode. You can actually move into a thriving embodiment through. And so as I continue to do this breath work, and I did this through my whole pregnancy. And of course, anyone who is, watching or listening, check with your medical provider. Everyone has different thoughts on being pregnant. Mine was fine with me doing it. And so, I did the breath work all through my pregnancy. It helped me dramatically. And then let me tell you, Megan, this is where it really showed up for me, which is why I ended up getting certified in the work. Because this was like, I love you talk about catalyst. This was like the next big catalyst in my life and changing moment. So I'm, at the hospital about to, have my daughter. I wanted to have a VBAC, vaginal birth after a C-section. And my doctor was really cool. He was super on board, but he had told me, because of COVID and everything else, things might change, just because unfortunately things were not set up the way they were going to be. So I kind of already knew this going in, but I prayed and I embodied and I surrendered and said, I'm going to surrender, but I'm going to trust that all the work I've done this year, that I'm going to be able to have my VBAC, because I trust my body can do it. And I have the faith it's going to happen. And so, fast forward, we get to the hospital and I'm progressing and everything's going great with labor and everything's happening. And my husband's like shocked. He's like, wow, this was not with my first daughter. Everything was so crazy. And it was just beautiful and it was flowing and everything was so peaceful. And it's such a crazy time, right? To be peaceful. It was like, wow, okay. And I was so grateful. And so, hours progressing. And I think about, first off, I checked in at like, I don't know, 7 or 8 centimeters. We were all shocked. It was like, wait, you're already halfway there. We're past that. So that was a shock, because I didn't even get to 6 with a million until I was, pushed over to the hospital. So anyways, I fast forward and I'm, going through the labor and I'm getting close to pushing. So now I'm basically almost at complete. And the doctor's like, okay, we're going to do some practice pushing, because, you didn't really do that with the first baby because of what happened. So I start, pushing, everything's great. She's moving down. We all feel good. We're like, okay, it's go time. We're ready to do this. So, I get into my space and I'm, really meditating and I'm, like just trying to get extra zen to like allow this to happen. And just about as she's about to come all the way through, she gets stuck. And my doctor looks at me and my husband looks at me and he says, if she gets stuck again, we're going to have to go to the OR. Deep sigh. And I look at him and I look at my husband and I'm like, no way, no way. I didn't come this far. Like, I know what surrender is, but like, I didn't come this far to allow my own fears. Cause I knew it was me. I knew I was holding her. I knew the body knew, and I was holding. I really believe, our anxiety, our fear, our stress, all of it, we clench up and the body just does what we give it. And so I was in fear and I was holding her. And I looked at my husband and I said, can you please give me my earbud? I want to play something in my ear. And I went to my breathwork playlist and I went to a specific breathwork meditation of fear releasing. And I put my earbud in, I said a prayer. And I just started to really embody. And I said to my doctor, please do whatever you can do. And I'm going to do whatever I can do on my end. You tell me how hard I need to push and I'm going to do it, And he's like, okay, this is, her, fever, she had a fever at this point. It was spiky, it's like all the things. And he's like, okay, I have to make sure you guys are safe. So this is it. And I'm like, okay, I understood. This is it. And I took another deep breath and I said a prayer and I started breathing. And I just really started imagining like that I was not there, that I was really in a place of true surrender. I was really in a place of, okay, like I'm going to allow this and I'm going to receive this. And I swear to you, again, God, the universe, my angels showed up. I started having this out of body experience. I started like seeing like all these colors. I saw myself, but I wasn't there. And next thing I knew, there she was on my chest. I was back in my body. She was screaming. I was crying. I unbelievably could not believe she was on my chest. And I had done it. And it was like, what just happened? And that, anyone listening or watching, that was the next level of, wow, not only does this work, but we are the true tool, but we have to trust and have so much faith that we can do this and we can surrender into this. And I was able to see how much that embodiment and my practices showed up. And that is why I got certified in breathwork, because after that, I was like, how do I not do this work and learn this as deeply and divinely as I can to show up and serve the world in such a bigger space of transformation and of this self-love and this empowerment and this like true sovereignty? Like, how could I not? I would be doing a disservice if I didn't. And so that's how I became a certified breathwork practitioner.
Oh my gosh, I love it so much. And I know you know this too. Like I'm expecting my first little one, and
I
I
know,
feel
I'm
like
so
I
excited
was
for
just about to
you.
like cry listening to the story. Like, oh my God. But it's funny how like apprehensive some people are about breath work. And you're like, we use it in everything, right? Like we
Everything.
use it when we're giving birth, we use it when we're trying to calm down, we use
Yes.
it when we're trying to amp ourselves up about things. And I feel like people just can't make that association. It's like, no, like the breath is so powerful. And I remember I think it was in like a Jay Shetty book. It's like it's literally the first thing that we do as newborns is like
Literally.
we take a breath, like, and we always have the breath. It's available to us. It's free.
It's
Like,
literally like it's within us. I was joking with a client the other day because we were, breathing, and she afterwards was like, "Oh my God, Ali." And I was like, "You got high on your own supply." Like,
mhm. Yeah, I remember
It's
seeing like a little comment from someone on a breathwork, and it was like, surprise, breathing still legal after what I just experienced.
right. It's so true though. And then it's like going back to what we were saying with being, babies when we come into this world, not only do we take a breath, but we take a divine, deep, embodied breath, not these short, shallow breaths that we all take, which by the way, no judgment, because I was doing the same until I learned like we're just all just kind of chugging along and just have these short, shallow breaths. But the real deep breathing that, in the belly, out the chest, and you watch your baby, you'll see when your beautiful blessing comes along earth side, it's like you watch them breathe and it's like, this is how we come in. This is how we're actually supposed to be. Obviously not all the time, but this is what we're supposed to embody. This is what it's supposed to feel like. This is why we're like this when we come in as these divine beings. So I love that you said that, because it's so true. And it's like, once you realize you can use the breath to go from surviving to actually thriving, it's like, oh my God. And for me, I've realized no matter where I am in my life, every breakdown leads to a breakthrough. And that is why I was like, breathwork is a game changer. Everybody needs this in their life, whether they realize it or not. They need this in their life.
Absolutely. And I want to be very mindful of your time, but I know you have like a new breathwork app, and I would love if you could talk a little bit about what's in it, what can people expect from it, who's it for, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Yeah. So my app I created is called Breathe and Be, just like breathe like it sounds. And then you can either put in the ampersand sign or type in AND and it comes up both ways, and just the letter B. That's the only difference. Because I want it to be all about being in your being and being you, because I really believe the more we are in our being and the more we can embody that, it's not about the doing, it's truly about the being. And that has been my journey over and over again. When I see the most transformation for myself, as well as for my clients and everyone I work with and those I love around me, it is when they're in their being, because that is when the noise shuts off. That is when we are allowed to truly access our highest self, our soul level, and receive the wisdom that we always have, but we forget about because the noise comes online and the distractions and social media and life and all the things that take us away from our actual being. So that's why it's called Breathe and Be. And so you can download it on the App Store and Google Play, and it's free to download, because my intention was I want everyone to be able to at least access this and say, I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to see what this is about. But of course, my hope is that you choose to subscribe and you upgrade for all access, because I drip in new content every month. There's breathwork exercises for all different times, 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever you have the time available for. I want you to feel supported. And I'm always pouring in new content in there. There's also a paid community in there that comes with the app when you subscribe, so you can connect with like-minded individuals. And there's going to be a lot more features. I'm about to start going live in there. So it's a way for me to have a new space and community to like really show up for the people who really want to receive this and embody this and allow this soul transformation. So if that is calling you, if that is a, soul resonance for you, please come join and check it out. I would be honored to have you and support you in this transformational journey. Like, it's transformed my life. And, even if you're curious and you just want to see like, what's this about that we're talking about? What do you mean high off your own supply? Like, come breathe, come check it out. Let me hold you in sacred space and guide you, because I promise you, whether you do one breathwork session or you do, like me at this point, hundreds, you will be transformed every single time. You will walk away and understand how divinely you are created and the medicine that is within you and what your body is always doing for you and showing up for you. And that alone, I think, Meghan, is a game changer, because when you start to receive that and you start to embody that, then you show up differently in every single shape and way of your life. You see everything so differently from such a higher perspective, and that higher consciousness shifts everything you do. And you don't have to do anything. It just shifts because you're in the being.
Ali, I feel like I could talk to you forever about all of this. This has been such an incredible conversation. If people want to check you out online, maybe they just want to see what you're up to on social media, maybe they want to download your app again, where can everybody go and find you?
Yeah, thank you. Well, this was an amazing conversation. I'm so excited for you and to hear all about your birth coming and your little one and everything. So congratulations to you. And thank you for letting me be here. You can find me, my website's alilevine.com, just my name, ALILEVINE.com. You can go to all social media, Ali Levine Design, ALILEVINE, and just the word design, no S. I also have my podcast that's coming back that actually Megan's going to be coming on after she has her beautiful baby, called Awakening with Ali. And it's all about my spiritual journey and breath work. And it's been on hiatus because I launched my app, but it's coming back this summer. So stay tuned. So you can check that out there too. And I have a Instagram, Awakening with Ali, and my new account. Oh my God, so many accounts. Breathe and Be Ali Levine is on Instagram as well, where I'm going to be dropping more breath work and just simple tools and, just things that are more of that niche. So if you're really looking for just about breath work, then go check out, Breathe and Be Ali Levine and follow there. But yeah, I'm just everywhere on social. Please, if this resonated for you, say hello. I love to connect in DMs and, meet people and hear what resonated for you and support you. If you want to book a call with me, my Calendly link is in my link tree. Everything's there for you. I'm here to support you, and make sure you share this episode if it resonated for you, and tag Meghan and I so we can share the love back.
Thank you so much for all of this. I will make sure everything is linked in the show notes. Ali, you were such a light. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Meghan. I really appreciate it. And thank you, everyone.